Hello, everybody. It's time for yet another of our wonderful series of Meet the Arranger. And we have Keely Hodgson with us today. Hello, Keely.
Hi, Craig.
How are
Hello.
you doing? Up there, tell us where you are.
I'm in Benriding, Ilkley, West Yorkshire.
Ilkley. Oh, I think my brother used to live in Ilkley. And he loved the school. The school was brilliant, he said. The school for the kids was very good.
Ilkley Grammar School. That might be the one you're referring to.
It might be. I think they were juniors. I think they were younger then at that.
Ah, right. Well, there are a few primary schools. They're all supposed to be good. Our children went to one of them.
I'm sure they're all amazing. And so, thank you for joining us on this day. And we are about to launch your wonderful set of arrangements. And so, it's my lovely pleasure to meet you and find out about your musical history and what makes you tick, and let other people find out about you so they can look at your arrangements and buy them in the future. So, I will start with that question that everybody has, and we'll see where it leads. And you've had
Right.
lots of time to prepare this now, haven't you? And
A
it
bit.
is, if you can think back to your earliest musical recollection, it's always very interesting. Can you give us some idea of your earliest, when you thought music was a thing and you thought, I like that?
Hmm. Well, I've thought about this a bit more actually over the last couple of days. My first response would be Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Ah,
And the
yes,
song Truly Scrumptious.
of course.
I got totally involved in that story. But there are so many different memories, but one that stands out actually is probably hearing Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And the reason why I say that is that I wrote a poem for my mum when I was about age 5, might have been slightly younger, but I was able to write, and she still got it on a piece of paper with
Oh,
illustrations, and it used the words "somewhere over the rainbow," and it was really mushy but nice.
yeah. But I think when you look back, all those films, they're all classics, and the songs are great, aren't they?
They're lovely,
I
yeah.
don't think they'll remember some of the sort of musical films that come out a lot these days, whether they're all going to be, classics in the future. But in that time, those sort of mid early 60s, they were all brilliant, weren't they? So
Yeah, all
I think
special ones.
the songs from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang also, they excited kids of a certain age. When you were 5 or 6, it was great, wasn't it? You're in a flying car going chitty 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 chitty. It's great. I suppose you wanted to be truly scrumptious, did you? That was the how you
Actually,
identified.
no, I wanted to be one of the children. I think that was sort of my age. They were kind of my age.
Yes.
I think it was actually made earlier than the time I'm talking about when I first watched it. But
Yes.
that's what I identified with, and having a mad father who invented amazing things. Not that my father wasn't good.
Oh, so I hang on. Did you say you had a mad father that also
No,
invented?
no, no, not mad. My father could turn his hands to lots and lots of things, and he was actually a motor mechanic in one incarnation.
Wow.
But then did lots of other things besides. But
I can
yeah,
see how
perhaps I was actually,
you
yeah,
know,
dreaming.
I can see how it's all being channeled there. So you talk about your family, and what about your family musical influences? Were they musical as well?
Kind of. My mom listened to Radio 2 all the time. Big Terry Wogan fan. I mean, she spoke to Terry Wogan on one of his phone-in programs. She was absolutely smitten by Terry Wogan. I just think the Radio 2 specifically, was on all the time. My dad, on the other hand, would sometimes treat us to his harmonica playing, which he'd learnt by ear from an uncle. And he obviously got a lot of pleasure out of that, but it didn't come out that often. But I used to hear a lot of the music that he played in his garage, which was mostly Supertramp, Genesis, Pink Floyd,
Ah,
Santana,
okay.
that kind of stuff. And I particularly liked Supertramp. That was one of my favorites at the time.
Sort
Yeah,
of soft rock, but sort of edging towards the muso end, I suppose.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I see that. I think I got into Supertramp a bit later on, but that's quite early in your years to be exposed to that kind of stuff.
I think it probably was. I mean, in contrast, my mum, through the listening of, to Radio 2, there was a lot of stuff from the 60s, and before that, I think she was into Matt Monroe. I once found a vinyl of the Lettermen. They didn't have lots of records. Well, I don't remember lots of records. Perhaps they kept them hidden. But there weren't many classical records. I only found two classical vinyl records. One was something by Stravinsky. I can't even remember. I don't even think I played it.
Wow.
But the other was Elgar Enigma Variations.
Yes.
And that I was allowed to play later on.
Yes.
And yeah, that got me hooked.
I'm sure. Yes. I think we had some Elgar as well on vinyl. You never quite forget the vinyl that you first come across, do you? What about your first ever musical purchase? Do you remember that?
I think it was probably one of those albums which is the greatest hits, Top of the Pops greatest hits.
Yes.
That's something that springs to mind. Had a bit of Wizard on it, a bit of ELO, Mud.
Was it the genuine article, or was it one of those terrible cover things that we used to get fobbed off with?
No, it was the genuine article.
Genuine article. Right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then that was probably followed. I didn't do a lot of record buying actually, but probably followed by an ABBA album, because ABBA featured quite a lot in our household.
There you go. So sort of early 70s, that's where it all started to kick off.
Yeah.
And so it's at your first school, your primary school. Were you singing hymns? Were you doing music at school? Was there a music class? Did you do that Radio 4 program, maybe, singing together?
Yes, the Radio 4 program. I was trying to remember what that was called. I started off in Reading. That's where I was born. So I went to primary school in Reading until the age of about 8. And I'm pretty sure we sat on the carpet and listened to singing together. I always remember some stories and the songs linking in, if that's right. I don't know, perhaps that might be something different, but that definitely caught my imagination. We moved from Reading to a village in the Berkshire countryside near Newbury, and I went to a little village school which was really different, but still there was a lot of music, i.e. listening to music. Probably not sat on the carpet at this point, but
so listening, not so much performing.
I don't remember an awful lot. By this time though, I was playing the recorder, so I must have picked up the recorder at some point, but I can't tell you when it was. It's always been there. The recorder's always been there, and actually, if I'm honest, so is the guitar. I was speaking to my mother yesterday even, saying, can you remember when you got me my first guitar? And she said, no, I can't remember. But I think because we used to watch Top of the Pops religiously as a family, right, I was really taken by the classical guitarist John Williams. And he was in a band called Sky.
Yes, he was.
And I remember really being so taken by that and just watching him playing the guitar. So that definitely sparked my interest in the guitar. So by the time I got to this second primary school in the village, I was playing the guitar. And I do remember writing a song for my peers and me to sing at the leavers service.
Can you remember how it went?
I can only remember a phrase which went, thank you for the teachers who have taught us, taught us, taught us. Now, if you imagine children singing that, though,
I love the three
taught us, taught us, taught us. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, yeah.
But we did sing hymns. We sang hymns because it was a church school. So, there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next school, sort of a senior school now, I suppose. Are we doing more choirs, orchestras? Did the recorder develop onto flute and clarinet and other things?
No. Just before I started secondary school, I was invited to join the church choir in the village because a girl had moved to the village who was going to go to school with me. And she and her family were churchgoers, which my family weren't. And I think maybe they got wind that I might be a bit musical. So I started in the church choir. And then when I got to secondary school, I joined the school choir. not because it got me out of assembly. Honest, I didn't. I really loved it, absolutely loved it. And I just enjoyed the music making that we did in the class. You know, that those music classes where not everybody wants to be there at the start. And I do remember playing my recorder in that, and doing lots of singing, and obviously learning a bit about other music, but it's a bit hazy. All of that time is hazy, right, until I suddenly get the urge to play something different. And I think, again, that can be traced back to playing the guitar at a Saturday morning music school in Newbury, because I was largely self-taught until I got to this music school. And then I used to be given guitar music, which I could read because I could read to play the recorder. And it was a group lesson, so I'd be left at a desk with my guitar and the piece of music, and then the person in charge would come back, say, you know, play me a bit, kind of thing. And I just picked it up really, really quickly. So that was great. But then when we did concerts, I always looked at the orchestral players, because we'd have our little guitar group and we'd play something quite spectacular, really, you know, a bunch of guitarists playing classical guitar. But then I had orchestral instrument envy, and wanted to do something that would get me into an orchestra. So I went to the music teacher that I had at secondary school, a lovely man called David Reynolds. And I think he'd already seen that I was a keen would-be musician. So he said, what do you want to play? And I'd explained that my parents probably wouldn't be able to afford an instrument. So he said, well, I could possibly try and find you something. So I said, well, I'd quite like to play the oboe. And I don't know where that had come from. Maybe it was because I like listening to the wind band. I don't know. But he said, right, well, I'll see what I can do for you. And then several days later, called me into the class and said, I'm really sorry, I can't get hold of an oboe. No. But I have found a cello.
Isn't it amazing how these things happen?
Yeah, yeah.
And if he had found an oboe?
He couldn't find an oboe. There was no oboe available, but there was a cello.
But if he had found one, it might have taken, your course might have been completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah. It could have been very, very different. But that could be said for every step we take, couldn't it, really?
I guess. But... So is this the cello that I can see in the case behind you?
Well, that's a very new cello. The first cello was a bit battered, and obviously it belonged to the school.
Of course, yes.
I was 14 by this point, and I had a lovely cello teacher. Sadly, I don't remember her name. And she was very patient and very kind, but very excited because I picked the cello up so quickly. In my first exam I did was grade 4.
Your very first one was 4. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Kind of like with the guitar as well. You had a very, naturalness with music. You picked things up very quickly. It came naturally to you. Did you feel that? Did you know that there was something musical inside you that came naturally to you?
Well, I didn't sort of think anything of it most of the time. It was just something that seemed to be part of me, really. That was it. I loved it. It was part of me. I don't think I took it for granted necessarily, but I did, as I was growing in awareness anyway, as I was maturing as a teenager, I did realise that it was quite unusual to get grades. So on the cello it was grade 4, grade 6, grade 8. Wow. So that by the time I got to sixth form, I was ready.
And how long did it take you to get into the orchestra with the cello? Just after grade 4, or just?
Well, you see, there wasn't really a school orchestra. Not in the secondary school I went to. It wasn't until I got to sixth form. I don't really know what happened to the Saturday morning music school, Craig.
What's this? Story I was following.
I know, sorry, yes. But I didn't end up playing in the orchestra. Wow. I have this feeling that I was always playing catch up with my peers who were already instrumentalists, who'd been playing, for years and years. But what did happen was I auditioned for a string chamber orchestra, Berkshire Youth String Chamber Orchestra, and I think I was I don't know whether I was in the sixth form by then or not, actually. I didn't have a lot of years with them, but that was quite high powered for me. that was like, go to the back. I was in the back desk, but still, it was great. It was great to have that opportunity. And I played in sort of little chamber groups at sixth form. There were some very talented string players, and I got the privilege to play with them.
Fabulous. So that's a great start. And obviously a brilliant thing that the cello can do. It's so versatile, can fit into lots of different ensembles as well. Some great music written for cello by all sorts of wonderful composers. So a great choice by your teacher there to find you.
Well, yes, I think so, probably.
I've always secretly harboured a want to play the cello. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I think it would be the best thing to play in an orchestra. I think you're really contributing to some of the soul of the orchestra, the wonderful melodies that are all there. Anyway, I'm talking about singing and about what you're doing now and where the composing and the arranging came from. So was it around this time that you were singing and thinking about arrangements, or did that come later?
Singing, I never really, although singing I loved, it was just a part of me. I never really thought of myself as a singer. I didn't think of myself as a composer or an arranger. And yet I do know that when I started to play the piano, because very soon my music teacher said, well, if you're doing this well on the cello, you really need to start the piano. So I started the piano when I was 15, and immediately began to write little things, just tiny little things for the piano. So I never thought that was being a composer. I just thought, well, I play the instrument and I want to write something for it. In sixth form, I remember becoming the house music captain or vice captain, probably. I was never a big one for being the leader of things at that stage in my life, which meant I had to conduct the house choir in a competition. And I remember that, but I don't remember any specifics. I think I found it really traumatic.
Oh.
Because I hate competitions. I really don't like competitions at all. So I think it wasn't really until I got to university, and that was a strange one as well, because just to rewind, before I went to sixth form, I auditioned for Dartington. That was very much at the instigation of my music teacher at secondary school. And I got a place at Dartington, but my parents couldn't afford it. And actually the head teacher said to them, I don't think she should be going to Dartington. I think, let her go to sixth form, let her do a whole range of A-levels. Don't put your eggs in one basket, sort of thing.
Yes.
And I think that was probably very wise advice, considering, I've been like a tomato grown in a hothouse, for a very short time. And I think I needed, to mature a lot more and to have more experiences, really. So the way that then outworked itself, I did a set of A-levels and I didn't know which way to go. And I didn't know whether I wanted to do music at university. I knew I wanted to go to university. I would be the first one in our family to get to university at this stage. But it was sort of music English, because I had a fantastic English teacher as well at secondary school. So I applied to different universities for either music or English and music. And to cut a very long story short, I went to Durham for an interview, pulled up at the station, and I don't know whether you know by train, when you come into Durham, you get this vista of cathedral and castle and river, and
it's rather beautiful.
And I just thought, I want to be here. And it just so happened that I applied to read music at Durham. So that's
right.
The story of the music degree. When I got there, I felt really, really out of my depth, if I'm honest. I really was not happy for the first term of my first year at uni, and thought, why have I done this? Because I think there were so many other people who were such brilliant instrumentalists and had done all sorts of stuff. And I just felt, again, this catching up business. But the sort of turning point of that came at composition lessons. So although, part of the degree was writing in the style of Palestrina or Bach chorales or whatever, as well as music history, etc. And we did have a session with the composer who taught there, John Caskin, and 20th century composition. So that was like composing in the style of Webern, Schoenberg.
Wow.
I'd never come across contemporary music before, you know, avant-garde music, that kind of music, 20th century. And it was a complete revelation. And rather than running away from it, I think it was like a blank sheet, really. It was like, well, no one's done anything. Around me, most people, I don't think, enjoyed that particular class. Some did. And I just loved it. I loved it. Just looking at scores and saying, you know, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And the sounds as well that were resulting. Yes, there were some really strange sounds. And I got some interesting comments from my father once about the sort of music I was trying to write, but we won't go into that. But yeah, I just really took to it. I enjoyed writing for my fellow students. We had an opportunity to do that at the end of the first year. And just as the degree progressed, that's what I really wanted to do, more and more composing. But arranging didn't come into that. It wasn't until after I'd graduated. Well, actually, it took a while, because it was when I got married. I was still doing a postgraduate degree in composition through Durham. But I got involved with a performing arts group through a local YMCA in Huddersfield, which is where I landed as a married woman, and tried just doing some arrangements for some of the teenagers to sing. And we had a little band there. So that was really the first time I just thought, well, I'll just have a go arranging stuff. It was a kind of needs must.
I see. So that came out of a need for providing something for a group that was there, having done a lot of practice, I suppose, composing your own music, I suppose, and music in the style of other composers, studying composition as a thing. So you brought quite a compositional sort of overall knowledge to. And do you still use that as a sort of basis for your arranging?
I like to think I do. I like to think it's still in there.
Yes. I'd love to sort of get to the nitty gritty of how you come to be on Choir Community and where your lovely arrangements come from. I notice on the list of songs that we've got, I mean, I wonder whether that's your mother's Radio 2 listening might have had something to do with this. You've got Blue Moon, you've got Let It Snow, you've got a Wings song, and you've got Fly Me to the Moon. So there's some interesting choices there. It's light music, but is that because that was what those people wanted to sing?
It was partly that, and it's partly because I do like that music, and I've thought about this, you know, the origins of all this. And one thing that my parents did contribute to all of this, apart from lots of other things, is that there was a stage where they were going to auctions, because they both ended up with an antique shop, and they used to go to auctions and bring back great big piles of old sheet music.
Yes.
So there were, you know, collections of music from films from the 1940s, things that I'd never ever heard of, but looked very appealing because the graphics, the visuals on them were very, you know, of a certain era, so 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that goes into the pot, but certainly the Radio 2 listening. And yes, I mean, I do ask my singers from time to time, what would you like me to arrange? And then I have to either step back from that or say, right, okay, I'll try. I'll have a go.
Let's rewind a little bit, because we've now got to the stage where you were arranging, but we haven't got to the bit where you started to lead community choir or choirs. Yeah. So can you give us a little bit of the story about how that came about as well, because you do run choirs as well?
There's a long time in my career where I didn't really do much music at all. I was very, very much in motherhood, if you like, in the parenting zone, and didn't do a great deal. At this point, we'd moved to Ambleside, and I met up with a group of like-minded women who had children at the same school, and we got together to sing. And one of them had been singing in a community choir in Manchester, which was led by a lovely lady called Keely Hodgson. And so she was bringing sort of her ideas of what we could sing, and asked Faith to come every now and again and workshop us. So Faith's a fantastic model of community singing leader. And I think I absorbed all of that, totally shocked by the fact that we had to learn by ear.
Yeah.
Because earlier on in my life, I was singing in a female voice choir, a cappella choir called Opus 44, based in Bingley, a quite good choir, singing in competitions and festivals, etc., etc. So I was good sight reader, reading music, all good, and then all of a sudden it's all by ear. So that was a revelation to me. I loved it. I would say that in the difficult moments, that kind of community singing really got me through stuff. The camaraderie, the friendships that we formed. It was a smallish group, and we did rehearse in each other's houses, quite squished in, with a bottle of wine normally, and water. And then we were only in Ambleside for 5 years, and then we moved. That's when we moved to Ilkley, actually. And I felt absolutely bereft. I just thought, I can't do without this kind of singing. I just love it. So I talked to Faith Hodgson about it, actually, and I went on a couple of things that she was doing, a mentoring group and a residential weekend for leaders. And she also said, why don't you join the Natural Voice Network, which I did. And she said, just give it a go. She said, you've got A-level music, you've got a degree in music, you've got a degree in composition, go on, just do it.
In some books that's slightly overqualified for for a by-ear community choir, but I think they've probably benefited a lot from that.
Yeah. So yeah, and if I'm honest, I really lacked in confidence. My people leading skills, I just felt that, oh my goodness, this is a big deal.
You put your finger on it. That's a lot of it, isn't it? A lot of it is the being comfortable leading a group of people for quite a up to 2 hours every week, and giving them it's people don't realize the preparation and the other skills you have to have apart from the music. There's an awful lot to it, isn't there, really?
That's right. So I put my best foot forward, I suppose, partly because I needed to earn some money, having not earned much money for a long time. And I took her advice. I did sort of one-off day workshops just locally, just to see what the interest was, because I knew that there were a few good formal choirs around. I didn't want to tread on anybody's toes, but I thought this is different. So I did some day workshops, put some lists out. Anybody interested in joining some small singing groups? Was absolutely amazed when people signed up. So I had a group meeting in my kitchen. I had a group meeting in a very small venue in Ilkley, and things really grew from that. I started my Heart and Soul singing retreat. I started that even before I did a big community choir, because I just really valued the sense of well-being that I thought was being shared by me leading people into song, people sharing their voices with each other, that just wonderful effect that we get when we're immersed in glorious harmony. So that came about. It wasn't actually until, so at this point I was actually teaching in primary school. I was a music specialist in primary school. About 2011, I decided to start a community choir. So I knew I had people on board for that, because they kept saying, would you think about leading something larger? It'd be lovely. It would be lovely to have men for a start, because both my small groups, well, with the exception of my kitchen group, there were no men. There was one man in my kitchen group. So that was kind of simmering away, just that idea. And then our local church is connected, very strongly connected, with a charity called Give a Child a Hope, which helps raise funds and awareness for this place called Matuga, Uganda. It's the specific place is called the Revival Centre. It's kind of schools, orphanage, health clinic, vocational centre. And there was an inspirational speaker one day at the church talking about this charity. And I'd already met a few people that had come across from Uganda, and they talked to us. And I knew of people who were going over there to share skills and things like that. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm really inspired. I really want to do something, but there's no way I'm getting on a plane and flying to Uganda. I'm scared of planes, basically. What can I do? And seriously, just a little voice just said, well, you can sing. You can sing for Matuga. And I thought, well, yes, that's a good idea, isn't it? I'm bound to get people who want to do the same thing, because I know from the people who already sing with me that they want to join a larger choir. So I advertised, come and sing for Matuga, basically. And just made it a Saturday morning once a month. And it still only is a Saturday morning once a month, but it's become Ben Ridding Community Choir. And we did have, a fairly large membership. We're not talking hundreds because we're only a small community, but, we were pushing between 60 and 70 pre-pandemic. And yeah, I've just loved it, absolutely loved it. Met some wonderful people, and it's grown me. I feel like it's enlarged me as a musician, and I hope that that's being shared amongst people. Well, I know it has, because people have said how much they appreciate singing with others, having this opportunity. And it's not just the singing, is it? It's all sorts of other things that spring from it. Yes, the socializing, the coffee time is always important.
Yeah.
But people make such meaningful connections. And I don't know that this happens in any other sphere, really, but perhaps that's just because this is my sphere. But, people coming along to poetry workshops that I helped organise, or people coming along to a music and poetry evening that I was doing at one point, or people discovering that they have other hobbies in common, but, networking, but in a lovely, meaningful way. And I'm sure it all springs from the way that we can be quite vulnerable when we use our voices, and especially the people who come for the first time, who've never used their voice, or who've been told, oh, you can't sing, who've really wanted to sing, and to give somebody that opportunity, I think is an enlarging and life enhancing activity.
I totally agree, and I think those stories are echoed, worldwide, actually, with many of the community choirs that seem to have sprung up almost independently of each other, and yet there's so many of them now. There's been a sort of a global need for this sense of community and shared experience, which I think you're talking about, which goes far deeper in so many ways than we can sometimes even realize. So it's great that you've had those experiences too, and you're giving that experience to so many people in your community as well, Keely. So that's the Ben Ridding, and that's Saturday mornings. Is that the only choir you run now?
No, I've got a cappella, which is a Friday afternoon. That's all women.
Good.
But lovely. We've got 20 singers at the moment. It was growing pre-pandemic. It was growing larger than that, but I'm really happy with 20 singers. I've got a Monday night group, which are now called the Heart and Soul Singers. They used to be the Kitchen Singers.
Oh, the Kitchen Crew.
Yeah, the Kitchen Crew.
Very good.
But again, it's still relatively small, and we meet in the church lounge at the moment because of the whole COVID thing.
I'm going to ask you about your arrangements. Which out of these the first batch do you want people to particularly pleased with for any reason? I mean, you know what there is. There's Summertime, Blue Moon, Dream a Little Dream. There's a couple of Christmas ones there, which is nice to see. People will be, weird. It's weirdly, I know it's only March, but it's not. It's soon summer, and summer is when people start thinking about Christmas songs. So it's. I know,
not wanting to wish the time away, but yeah.
No, we don't. We don't want to.
It's a difficult question, Craig, because all my arrangements to date, because they've been made for the people I sing with, they've all got these good associations.
Of course. They're all as wonderful as each other and have a
Yeah,
very special reason for being there.
they do. I mean,
Yeah.
musically speaking, I mean, if a push came to shove, I would say summertime, because I really enjoyed arranging those harmonies and thinking about how I was going to do it, how I was going to give the tune to one of the lower voices, etc. But if I'm allowed to talk about one of my own pieces,
Yes, you can.
is that all right?
Yes.
For me, and this goes back to the associations, for me it's Stardust, because I wrote that specifically for the group of men that came to sing with me. And the guy, Andrew Burgess, who wrote the words, was one of the singers. And it was just so special. So that one for me is yeah, my standout.
That's good. Well, that gives people a good start with both your arrangements and your own compositions, and I'm so pleased that you've got both featured on the site. And I think people will have a lovely time discovering what you've written and what you still continue to write. Just before we go, is there anything else you're working on now that you're excited about that you can give us a little pre-taster of? That may be coming, we may be able to have in the next year or so.
Yeah, well, I've done a few more arrangements anyway, whilst sort of in the waiting room, as it were. One I really enjoyed doing was Build Me Up Buttercup. Very different sort of piece. I think that came from my childhood.
It's a
The
very popular song.
foundations.
I don't think I've heard that done much with community choirs. I think it would work very well.
Well, I'm hoping it will. So that's mixed voices. I want to do more mixed voice pieces. At the moment, I'm trying to revise a piece that I wrote during lockdown, actually. So in 2020, in that beautiful weather, strangely, I returned to Wordsworth's Daffodils, and I just thought I really want to set this poem. So I've been working on that. At the time, I wrote it for a harp accompaniment, but not everybody's going to have a harp to accompany their choir.
That's right.
So I'm revising it so it's with piano accompaniment for upper voices probably. But yeah, there are quite a few things in the drawers that original compositions, as well as some arrangements that maybe I thought, I don't know if that works, and put that away. So I'd like to get out some of those things and rethink.
Well, thank you, Keely. We look forward to hearing those, and thank you for telling us about your a rather unusual and very interesting journey through your musical life, and it's led you to some wonderful places, and we're very grateful that it's led you to us. So everyone, check out Keely's stuff. She's brilliant, and we look forward to having many more wonderful arrangements on our site in coming years.
Well, thank you for admitting me into this wonderful team, because it feels already like a lovely supportive community. So thank you very much.
We hope, you never know, we might even end up being a choir ourselves.
That would be great.
So thank you, Keely. Check out her stuff, everybody, and we'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, Craig.
Bye.
Bye.